So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today, live in YuLife's HQ, affectionately known as the Universe. And a huge welcome to everyone who's tuned in from home. We have over 2,000 people watching us live, which I think is incredible and such a huge testament to the importance of today's conversation.
Hello.
Hello. And hello. So quick introduction from myself. So I'm Kate Whitelock. I'm Head of Wellbeing and Propositions at YuLife. And today I am very excited and very honoured to be joined by Richard Hammond.
You're going to make me introduce myself
No, I'm
now,
going to introduce you, because that's awkward, isn't it?
I'll just make it up.
So Richard is a very well-known TV presenter. He's also an author and a journalist, and known for obviously Top Gear, The Grand Tour, and many, many other shows. But today, Richard is going to particularly share some thoughts and experiences on not one, but two, how did you do it?
That's the other thing I'm known for.
Life-altering incidents, crashes, in 2006 and 2017, when Richard suffered. Well, you're going to share with us today some very life-changing,
issues, events, circumstances.
And had to go through an incredible recovery journey. And I think your story really is one of true resilience. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for having me.
So a little bit of context to today's conversation. So workplace absenteeism is unfortunately at an all-time high. So employees are absent on average 7.8 days per year, and they're citing issues like mental health and musculoskeletal concerns as some of the key drivers for absence. And unfortunately, the struggling NHS is slowing down rehabilitation and recovery rates. So MetLife and YuLife have come together to create a new group income protection proposition that is focused on providing effective recovery and return to work support, as well as helping create healthy and resilient organisations. So Richard, what you're going to share with us today, your thoughts, your experiences on how to support someone on that recovery journey couldn't be more relevant. So we really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us.
More than welcome. I love the fact that I'm as well known for two massive crashes.
Yeah. Well,
it's just bad parking, really.
Well, let's start there then, so shall we? So before we get into recovery journey,
yes,
could you start by sharing a little bit about your first crash in 2006 and the impact that had on you?
Yeah, and also to put it into kind of a workplace context, I guess, makes it more relevant
absolutely,
and pertinent.
To start where we can also come back to that as well.
Well, it all started when I ran into the office and said to Andy Willman, the boss of the show, Andy, I've got this brilliant idea, I just want to go really fast. And that was it. That's the level of intellect
no problem.
I brought to it. And they arranged for it. Yeah, I mean, essentially on the day I'd completed, I can't remember how many runs, but a number of runs up and down the runway. They hadn't fitted a speedo into the car because they knew I'd be chasing a speed. Because the car was capable of a British land speed record. So they hadn't fitted a speedo, and I'd completed the runs for the day, and then over the radio the director came, look, Rich, I've negotiated, we can do one last run up the runway, which I did. And then at 319 miles an hour, I didn't know that because I couldn't see there was no speedo, the front right tyre delaminated. So that's the outer layer, and it came off, disintegrated. And I remember that. I remember thinking, ooh, something's gone wrong. The car starting to slew to the right. I remember engaging with the controls, but not very clearly. And then I remember it went to the right and it started to roll, and I knew, well, there's no roof on this car. I knew I was doing 300 plus miles an hour. And I thought, now I die. But it was, without getting maudlin and caught up on that moment, because there's more positive things to talk about, actually, it wasn't scary. It was like answering a question. When's it going to happen? Well, no, that's coming. And it was no more than, oh, this is how it happens for me. Genuinely, the next thing on my list to do was, I assumed, to die. There was no fear. I think there are three states, aren't they? There's fight or flight, but there's also freeze, which is that state that we go into when there is nothing you can do. So I was along for the ride at that point, and I assume that's it. Then they came and rescued me, and that's where we can talk more about what work had put in place to make sure that should something go wrong, everything was there. So as far as I was concerned, they came, the ambulance, the air ambulance landed very quickly. I don't remember, but I was conscious, apparently. Quite fighty, which is very common with a brain injury. They bundled me into the helicopter, and I was a bit scrappy, and then duly passed out, fell into a coma. Took me into the hospital, and by then word had spread. Me and my wife had been told. It had spread throughout the rest of the team, obviously. And then I was a couple of weeks in an induced coma. In a coma and then an induced coma because the brain swells. That's where the damage is done. So it was a frontal lobe injury. Decelerative, because I decelerated from... The car was still doing 290 miles an hour when it was inverted, but then it hit the ground and the roll bar over the top, dug in, so it stopped. So it was decelerative. So the car stopped and I stopped, but my tiny little brain didn't, and sort of bounced off the back of the front of my skull.
So you go through this huge accident, you think in that moment you're going to die, you're in a induced coma for 2 weeks, but then obviously you wake up.
Yes.
So what were you told by the doctor at the time about your health prognosis, and how did that impact you?
It's very difficult to explain to brain-injured patients, acquired brain injury. I've chatted to loads. One thing I've been certain to do is talk to loads and loads of people who have acquired brain injury, particularly frontal lobe, because it affects you in particular ways. It's where you are. And it's astonishing. It doesn't matter how they acquired it. In my case, it was crashing a dragster at 320 miles an hour, but whether it's being shot in the theatre of war or falling off a ladder, cleaning a window, the path to recovery and the experiences are very, very similar, regardless how it happened. So I remember being aware I must have been hurt because I was in hospital. But I didn't understand why. Because with a brain injury, the very thing with which you have to assess the damage is the thing that's damaged. So it was my brain that was hurt, and I was trying to use my brain to understand I've been hurt. So it was a long time before I could accept it, because of course I could lie in the bed and think, well, everything works. I hadn't broken a bone. I don't remember it. There was horrible damage here, and my body was all out, but that's just, again, common with that kind of injury, but I don't remember that.
So was there a lot of confusion at the time?
Yeah, I had about a minute-long memory, if that, for a long time, for weeks and weeks. Again, I don't remember that period. My wife said I was the nicest I've ever been.
This is Mindy.
She actually said that. It's quite hurtful. But yeah, apparently I would sit and read the same newspaper 10 times a day. A nurse would come in and ask me, would I like something to eat? Yeah, and they'd show me the menu and I'd choose something, and then they'd come back and, how did you know that's exactly what I wanted? I was completely, literally 1 minute memory cycle, that was it.
So how did you go from that experience to starting to recognise that you need to begin your recovery journey? Like, what was the point at which you were ready to start thinking about moving forward?
It's a really interesting question, again, for anybody with a brain injury of that type, and again, that is whether you've fallen off a ladder or however you've acquired it. It's accepting that you're damaged. Because there's almost a guilt. Because you think, well, I'm in hospital, everybody else is in hospital, everything works. But of course it doesn't. There's a lot of, without getting gloomy, staring out of Rain Street hospital windows, questioning, who am I, what's wrong? Because you're trying to work it out. But eventually acceptance, accepting that, okay, there are mood issues here. Some of these moods that are coming on me aren't real. Some of these fears, some of these moments of paranoia aren't real. And that's a huge part of it. But really, you can only understand it by talking to professionals and loved ones and friends, and colleagues visited me, so people who knew me well could come and talk to me, and they could tell me they could see differences, and then you can start to believe people, because by then I could remember people. My memory had more or less returned, and so my long-term memory was never damaged. So I knew who they were, and if they were telling me I was different, then I had to accept that.
And where did you begin? So when you realised there was a level of acceptance that things had changed quite significantly, what was the point at which you were ready to start progressing towards becoming better? You're
not conscious of progression. All you can do is pass time day to day to day to day, and then think, am I better? And yes, I would get to the end of a week, a month, and think, ooh, yeah, I've come a long way. And then a month later, I'd be thinking, ooh, I had a long way still to go back then. There was a really key point, I can't remember, maybe 2 years after that crash, I was making a documentary with and about Sterling Moss. He's a bit of a legend and a hero.
Huge
Lost him.
legend,
He
yeah.
really was a proper chap. I've got stories about him. He was superb. And he had received a very similar frontal lobe brain injury when he crashed, and he showed me the steering wheel his head went into. So again, similar, decelerative. Your head stops quickly, your brain doesn't, it damages itself inside the skull. And it was fascinating talking to him. He said something very interesting, which I'll come to. But offset, I was talking to Professor Sid Watkins, who was a really well-known specialist in racing acquired brain injuries. In fact, he was responsible for a lot of the developments in racing crash helmets post Senna's accident. Absolutely lovely guy. We lost him not too long ago. And he was chatting to me during my accident. He sort of connected with my sort of support, wife, Mindy, family. And he was chatting to me off camera saying, well, Rich, how long did the doctors tell you it would take to recover? And I said, well, they were talking about sort of 2-3 years. And I was 2 years in, and he just said, it'll be longer than that, don't worry. And I just burst into tears because I knew I wasn't there yet. I knew I wasn't, and I thought, am I never going to get better? We talk about the path to recovery. It's not a clearly defined, it isn't. There's no signs, it isn't a path. It's just constant progress. And eventually, it isn't a path at all. It is just life. It gets woven into one of the many experiences that make up who you are. And now, sitting here all these years after, yes, that was one of the big incidents in my life that shaped who I am. But equally, there are plenty of other things that have a big effect on your mind and a physiological effect on your brain. If you go and learn a lot, or if you do a lot, it will actually physically change your brain as well. Your brain is incredibly malleable and changeable, repairable. And so it's kind of filed alongside the other things that make up me. So that it stops being a path and it just becomes a broad progression as you age and change and develop and improve in some ways, get worse in others.
Did you find during that process, over that kind of year, 2 years, was it the mental sort of challenge or the physical challenge that was the hardest on that, or was it just a kind of a combination of both?
It was mental for me because I hadn't damaged myself physically at all. I'm probably just too simply built a creature to be damaged by it. It's not a lot to hurt, is it really? So, but we are, mind and body are one. And, you know, across all of your work and for all of us, it is one. They've never been separate. Your mind has never been separate from your body, and parts of your mind are spread throughout your body. I mean, the work that your gut does, informing you what you need and why, it works together. So you can't fully separate it. It's a physical injury. There's nothing mystical or, oh, wow, he's dented his soul. No, a clunking great bruise in the middle of my brain and it bled. It's a physical injury. And your mind, your brain, your personality, your moods, they're all subject to influence from neurochemicals. So they're physically affected. I learned that a really weird moment walking out of our house. Early stages of recovery, we'd just come home, but the journalists had gone. For a long time, the house was just ringed. They were camping in the woods, and because obviously they could get a little picture of me, you'd be worth something, fair enough. But they'd finally lost interest and wandered off. And I was walking out of the house to go over towards the garages, and I had this sudden upswelling feeling of profound love. It was really quite significant. Where was that? It was a really warm feeling in my chest. And then I realised I'd walked past my old Land Rover and obviously caught sight of it in my peripheral, and it had triggered that emotion. But the reason it stuck with me is that really deep emotions can be affected by it, but it's a physical event. So, in terms of ways it's changed me since, I'm much more aware of the effects on me, my health, in my head, my personality, the effects of exercise, of diet, of neurochemicals, of alcohol, all of these things I'm very, very aware of. I can't say I live a perfect life because of that awareness, but I do know if I wake up and I have even a glass of red wine,
Feel a bit rough around the edges.
I mean,
Yeah.
beer fear, anxiety, we've all had it. But I'm particularly aware of it. I wouldn't say I'm more susceptible to it, but I am very aware. As somebody who's spent all that time staring out of a window thinking, am I still nuts? I don't know. I'm particularly aware of it.
Can you talk a little bit about some of those habits? Because I know that you have quite an interesting running approach to running and as part of your kind of daily
I've
schedule.
always run. And just in the context of this conversation here, it's good to talk about that sort of self-maintenance aspect to it and the accessibility of it. I'm not a sports person. I hated it at school. Weirdly, I watched both my daughters play hockey at school to quite a high level. I thought, God, I really did miss out, didn't I? Because I had a great time. I hated it. So I've never been competitive, but I've always run. I've lived in like 27, 29 places. I worked it out once. I should do it again. Working as a sort of itinerant radio presenter, you go wherever the job is. Yeah, but the first thing I'd always do in moving into a new bedsit or wherever I was is find somewhere I could run, sort of 4 or 5 mile run. I've always done that, and I've always done that consciously for my mind more than my body. Partly as an excuse so I could drink more beer because I get the weight down, but mostly for my brain. And ever since that, I've very deliberately pursued it. There was a time in hospital, all I wanted was to be released into the wild to go for a run, and it wasn't until we were hiding in a little cottage up in Scotland, I had to be smuggled up there to evade the press. And I'd pleaded and pleaded, can I please go for a run? And Mindy had let me out. She hadn't told me that there were nurses following.
Oh, clever Mindy.
So I'd gone running over the hills in Scotland thinking, I'm free, I'm on my own. But no, they were tracking
Being
me.
tracked.
Otherwise I could still have been there wandering
Brilliant.
over the moors somewhere. But I do pursue, I did it today. I was telling you just before we came on. This morning, I rise early because I'm 55 this year. We get today.
55 young Richard.
God. And I'd planned on going into the, I say gym. It's like there's a room in the house where there's some weights and bits and pieces. Again, strength training, it's the same thing when you get into your 50s. It's incredibly powerful for you. You can feel the effects immediately. But I couldn't go in because there's a big window in the front of that room and there was somebody fixing a problem in the garden. And I waddled in my shorts and my T-shirt. I thought, I can't do that with it now. Stupid. So my brain thought, brilliant excuse, superb. Ran upstairs, got dressed in normal clothes, went and chatted to my daughter who was outside with the horses. And as I was chatting, I saw the hill opposite and thought, Rich, you know what you need to do. You know there's a happy, healthy, positive you somewhere on the top of that hill. So I went back inside.
You went back in.
Changed and I ran. And you almost, just to that point, and it's something I'm really keen to talk about, making that business of exercise and maintenance accessible. You have to get to know yourself well enough. You have to have, if you've got a healthy relationship with yourself. I knew, part of me knew, I'm just using this as an excuse because I don't really want to do that. Part of me knew, come on, you lazy little sod, get up. And I knew you can persuade yourself.
Have that conversation with yourself.
Yeah, above all else, I know I will come downstairs in the morning and make myself a coffee. I deliberately have a really fiddly coffee machine where you've got to grind it and press the beans and all that. I love all of that.
Sounds very fun.
Takes more time. And then I'll sit there savouring my coffee, maybe glancing at a crossword and listening to the radio thinking, if I spin this out for another 10 minutes, I'll be too late to go to the gym. So, and I also know that the other side of that door, there's a happier, more balanced, more positive, more productive me. Yeah. And I've just got to go in there and find him. So I know there is.
So it sounds like, so that was quite an important part then, was it, of your recovery process?
Massively.
Like the sense of freedom and being able to get out there and then talk a little bit now about, so when you decided to come back to work after the crash, what drove that return, the concept you had to go back to work? Was it you had to go back to work, you wanted to go back to work?
I had to for me. I mean, it's something to be alert to as an employer or with HR responsibility for people, or actually as yourself.
Yeah.
I needed to. The doctors agreed with me, and yeah, we've got to get him back to work because he's tearing himself to bits. But my work is unusual. I'd already dug a bit of a hole for myself because I'd already defined myself by my work. I would always, if I went back now and saw myself 20 odd years ago and said, "Do you define yourself by work?" No, absolutely not. I'm a family man and a father first. I was defining myself by it. And because I couldn't do that, I was twisting myself in knots. So they agreed to let me go back. I think it was too early.
How long was it between from the crash then?
Total elapsed time, I don't know. I think it was under a year. It was a number of months. I do know that the first steps back into work, they were too early. And the problem with the nature of the work I was doing, I keep saying work like it's a job, sorry. The nature of what I did to earn a living, it's all or nothing. I couldn't go back a bit. We were making Top Gear, we were doing Top Gear live at arenas all around the world. You can't do that a bit.
And there's no dipping in, is there?
No, I either did it full on. The first film I made was going to the North Pole.
Oh, wow.
And we asked the doctors, what happens to a recently brain-injured patient at -50 if he sleeps on the ice in a tent? Well, we don't know, do we?
I was going to say that.
It's not normal.
What did Mindy think about that?
She's incredibly patient.
Is she?
I mean, it does ask a lot.
Yeah.
Any sort of injury, illness, asks a lot of the people around you. I mean, anybody who's had an illness themselves or nursed somebody, you can see it. I mean, I became very riddled with guilt about that because there's a spider web effect, isn't there? Anything that affects any person, whatever that is, illness or good or bad things, it connects to other people. So it had a broad effect.
So you decided to go back probably too soon.
Yes.
How important was the support from your work and your co-presenters during that time?
Absolutely critical, and
what
it always is.
What do you remember of the support that you needed?
But we were lucky because it's a TV show, so we had that banter, we had that attitude towards one another. So Jeremy and James and the production team were amazing, of course they were. I can only just remember, but it was very funny, I remember getting involved in the process of the show that I was going to come back on. And you know, I have never watched it.
Oh, interesting.
But I remember us laughing about it in the office. Again, I was able to come into the office by then, but there was a network of people around me, wife, family, whatever. We were saying, well, let's not overdo it. But then we thought, well, it's much more us to overdo it. So I don't know if anybody saw the show. I still haven't seen it, but I was walking down like stairs with fireworks going off.
Wow.
And we just went berserk with it. Yeah. I don't really remember doing it, but I sort of dimly remember being there. I've never seen the show. But they were amazing. But it's a really big job as an employer. Again, wherever you fit into the picture of somebody's life, helping them back into work, it's a big job. And however they've hurt themselves, because the word hurt, it's deeply personal. You can be hurt emotionally, physically, mentally, in any one of a myriad ways, and it's personal. And then you've got to bring that personal hurt to work, which is hard. It doesn't matter how much you love your work, it's still work. Even I've loved my work for 36 years, but it is still work, not me. But then you have to blend the two, and as somebody who's responsible for somebody coming back to work, you have to consider that, because particularly with a brain injury, it's a very personal way to be hurt. For a long time, I wanted a T-shirt that on the front said, "I'm all right, stop asking," but on the back said, "I'm still poorly," you know.
It's confliction there, isn't it? Is that a word, confliction? Yeah. It's conflicting.
Yeah, that'll do.
Emotion, yeah.
But I think we all know that feeling if you've ever run for a bus or to cross the road or something, and you go over an ankle, it's and then you sort of, oh, fine,
yes,
style it out.
Yeah.
I may see the bone when I get home, but I'm fine. That. And I had that a lot. And chatting to other people who've, similarly been injured or whatever. None of us want to go on and on about it, but sometimes we need people to remember. Yeah. So you can't be involved enough. You can't be gentle enough. You can't be You're asking them, the injured person, if they're going to share what you need them to share if you're going to make work possible for them. You're asking them to share something deeply personal, which means you've got to ask and then wait. You've got to give space for them to come forwards. They've got to feel safe to share. It might only be the rate at which their broken leg is healing, or the rate at which their emotions are stabilizing. But it's deeply personal. And if you're going to ask them to share that, you're going to have to bear in mind you're asking them to share something deeply private.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, I know we were talking about this before with group income protection, that the concept and the idea is that that person's given specialist support for that individual that's right for them to help them on their journey, because it's a very personalised experience.
And it should be a positive journey. I mean, the one decision I made very early on, together with Mint, we were actually sitting by the fireplace in the little cottage we'd been hiding in Scotland, and very patchy memories of that time. I mean, I was still a mess. Apparently somebody turned up at the front door. I literally screamed and hid behind the sofa and wouldn't come out because I hadn't seen a stranger. I was just a mess. But I do remember, because I remember the sincerity, the depth of the feeling. I remember turning to Mind and saying, let's make this a good thing. Let's own it. And I've
Was that quite a defining moment when you made that decision? Yeah,
I've done that many times since. Many times, and I think it's something we can all do. Nothing has ever happened to you until you've reacted to it. Until you've reacted to it, it's happened.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened to you. It's your reaction that defines how it happens to you. And I made a positive decision at that stage. Let's make this a positive thing. And you know, I'm facing things now. 55, nothing small happens in your 50s, does it?
No.
Gordon Bennett. So yeah, there's issues.
Life gets richer.
Yes, that's one word. So yeah, I've got stuff going on in all departments of my life, as you know, I'm sure we all have. And I've carried that forwards, because anything that happens, anything sizable that happens in your life, good or bad, forget about that. It's a big thing that's happened. You are immediately at a fork in your road, and it's down to you. You really can decide. And people do it in the most astonishing circumstances. That's where we hear the most amazing tales from people who've turned things round. They haven't turned things round, they've probably reached that same fork and they've taken that same decision. I'm going to make the decision, because until you've reacted to it, it hasn't happened to you.
And how were you able to take that similar mindset when the second crash happened in 2017?
Yeah.
Hang on, so 11 years after the first one. Sorry. So 11 years after the first one.
Yeah, that
and then you have another.
Yeah.
And then you have to come back from that as well.
There's a similarity here in that we'd been racing up and down a Swiss hill climb. I was in an electric car, Rimac. Incredibly powerful car designed by Mate Rimac, Croatian design legend, who now runs Bugatti as well, just for fun. And he lent us this car. There were only 7 of them in the world.
Whoopsie.
Yeah. And we'd finished the runs up the hill for the day, and I was on the way back down, and the director, Phil, came over the radio. Rich, what? I've negotiated 1 extra run. And I did, I feel so bad. I said, Phil, oh mate, come on, you know what happens now. 1 extra run, next thing you know, it's going to be upside down and on fire. That's how it goes, is it? Right, okay.
Wow.
So I drove to the bottom of the hill, and 7 minutes later, he saw the helicopter coming in and black smoke coming up, and oh my God. Yeah, that was, I went too fast. Yeah, ran out of grip.
There's a pattern developing.
Yeah, and it shot off the top of the mountain. It fell hundreds of feet. I have got it somehow how many it fell. Managed to go between some trees and a building, and then it ended over end, front end first. That's what smashed this to bits. Then back end, and then sort of flew horizontally upside down for quite a long time. Like I was waiting for snacks to come round. It went on. Or a film or something. And then it landed upside down. And I had a seatbelt on, but no harness, and no neck brace. But I did have a crash helmet on, so I was upside down. Oh, this is uncomfortable, and I knew this leg was broken, and I figured a lot of these ribs were because they'd been impacted. It hurt, and And I sort of struggled a bit to try and get out. Seatbelt wouldn't unlock because I was hanging on it. And then I thought, oh, somebody will come and get me. And then I heard that the fire started. No, I probably will get out after all. So I managed to get the seatbelt undone, fell onto the roof, and all credit to Mate Rimac, the door opened, which, considering what that car had gone through, was incredible. The door opened and I pulled myself out by my hands and just said to two people who came up, pull me by my arms, not my legs, they're broken. They were strapping me to a spine board as the helicopter came in. By then the car was burning, just white hot sheet of flame. And I lay there and just thought, oh God, I've done it again. And then I thought, well, I better check. So I did a sort of systems check on my own brain, which I'm sure you could imagine doing the same. So I just write my name, got that. Why am I here? I'm here with Top Gear, recording this show, Grand Tour. Went through all of that. I've got two daughters, Isabella and Willow, Mindy. Yeah, okay, my brain's fine. Right, I need a telephone. And they were all desperate to get me in the helicopter, all these Swiss people. And the bodyguard who was with us, Gav, by then found us. Well, wasn't difficult to find, follow the smoke. And he was standing there and just said, no, give the lad a phone. He needs to make a call. So I called Mindy. Mind, hello.
Poor Mindy.
I'm only ringing because you're probably going to see this on social media fairly soon because there were a lot of phones there. So I've had another shunt. But don't worry, nothing that won't mend. No, I've checked. My brain is working because I felt horribly guilty in case I'd done it again to her. So then they shipped me off to hospital. I was quite happy because they filled me full of morphine. I was conscious. I fly helicopters, so I got to go in a helicopter. That was quite nice, chatting to the lads. They got me to a Swiss hospital. A bit later on, the director, Phil, turned up. And he was in a bad way. I felt awful. For what? I didn't say it to be cruel, but obviously he had a bad time with it. And then James turned up with a bottle of gin, so I didn't mind. It was brilliant. Brought me a bottle of Hendrix.
Did he do it the first time round as well, did you say? Didn't he bring you a bottle of the first time round as well?
Everybody visited, the whole team did. We were a close-knit family on those shows, of course we were. When you're doing stuff that you know can go wrong, and we knew after the first accident, we learned that lesson early on, that just because you're on telly, you're not in some magic protective bubble. If a tyre delaminates at 320, that's nobody's fault. It's an accident, but it can still happen.
Yeah.
Or if, like an idiot, you're so giddy you go over the finish line at a Swiss hill climb too fast, the physics will win.
Yeah,
and they did.
We're going to move to audience questions now from the online audience. So I'm just going to get my phone out. I've got lots more questions to ask you, so maybe we'll get some more time for those. But in the meantime, I want to make sure we get some...
It's very brave of you to use your telephone for this. I'd be like...
Also, I've got them contacted and they're playing up a little bit, so I can't actually really read. I just thought, I should wear my glasses. No, don't worry, I'll manage. So, hi, Richard.
Hi.
Well, I was very polite, isn't it? This is what motivates you to push forward in your career and personal life, and personal life changed since your accidents. Sorry, is that debate? It's not quite right.
Maybe it's two questions.
Two questions. What motivates you in your career and personal life, and what's changed since your accidents?
Motivates me in my career. I'll be honest. I love the job. I love the work. I love communicating. It's kind of what we do. I started in radio in 1988, which is like radio was new. I love the business of taking things and sharing them. And changes in my personal life since the accident, well, there are probably many changes in me, and I'm asked that a lot, but I don't know. Because years have gone by, and those are critical years. And big things, we've all got big things, easily as big as a brain injury that have happened in our lives. If you've ever lost someone or found someone or had a family, or all of those big events in your life shape and define you. I think of it as a tapestry. They just weave into that tapestry and they become part of you. Wow. So that's now taken its place as one of the events in my life. So I can't say it's changed me as opposed to anything else.
Haven't you been quoted as saying the only thing that's changed since before the accident is that I now like celery. I didn't like celery, and now I do.
Yeah, I was
that
for a while. Well, I was disappointed. I thought I might get some superpower.
Yeah, and you're like, hang on a minute.
Be able to leap huge buildings in a single bound, or see through stuff. No, all I could notice was I liked celery when I'd always hated it, and now I don't like it again.
How interesting.
Considering that was my superpower.
Yeah, that's
And
disappointing.
it's gone. Yeah.
Never mind. Maybe another one will appear.
Who knows?
It might be something else next time. What do you think, this is an interesting question, so what do you think in reflection has helped you most to recover and get you back on your feet? And what would you recommend for people going through diagnoses like cancer, which are also life-changing to a lot of people?
Wow, that's a huge, huge question.
Yeah.
In terms of getting through it, whatever you're recovering from, you will set your own pace. That will come from you, and that is therefore normal for you. So there's no normal to aspire to. Nobody else is you. So nobody's ever been hurt the way you have, if you've been hurt, physically, mentally, however. It's unique, so your recovery is unique and it's yours. And it is full of opportunity, because wherever you're starting from is where you are. And this also extends to my view, if you've had bad news or if you have a bad diagnosis, we live here now. That's it. The past, it simply doesn't exist. Only in the sense that memories of it might affect who we are now, but even that's subject to interpretation. It isn't there, and neither's the future. We all live in this. When I was crashing, when the car was going over, I had no sense of there'll be no more of this moment, because this moment is all we've got. And we're in it permanently. We're therefore in it forever. And therefore, when you're no longer subject to the boundaries of biological clock and rhythm and all of that, this moment is forever. It's where we are. So treasure that. And therefore, that's why I would say, if you've got the choice to make at a pivotal moment in your life, that fork in the road, I'm going to make this a good thing, because it's a simple choice.
It's a very mindful perspective to take. Have you always been that way inclined? Is that what do you think helped you on your...
Yeah, I'd say probably my accident helped that, maybe. Don't know. I'm not, a yogi or anything. I'm just a bloke.
On that note, actually, we've got a question from somebody who says, as a bloke, so I think this is quite a good one to ask next. So I suffer from depression and anxiety, and as a bloke, I've taken a big push. It's taken a big push for me to get into mindfulness. I know it's valuable for you. Have you got any tips for blokes on this journey?
Above all, it's safe to talk about it now. I mean, yeah, the patriarchal society that existed for many, many years, it was horrible for women, obviously, but also for men, because we don't want to be what we have to be seen as archetypal. But a lot of those archetypes, those stereotypes, we don't always want to be. It's quite nice that we can now be freed from it. So I don't think you need to be worried. There's no stigma attached to these things now. You can discuss it. Maybe if you I'm a big believer in celebrating, noticing and celebrating the things we're already doing for our own mental health and well-being, because we are. If you're playing five-a-side football, which I wouldn't do in a million years, but if you do, enjoy it. If you're playing five-a-side football, going to the pub with your mates, going for a run, having a nice bath. Whenever you're doing something like that you feel is doing you a good, think about it and just do it with that in mind. And not only that, talk to your mates about it. You'd be surprised how many of them will do the same. I've got a bunch of friends that I go to the pub with every Thursday night. And yeah, it's a bunch of blokes. We're builders, helicopter pilots, television presenters, farmers, just blokes. And we talk, I won't say, there's various words to describe what we talk. I'm sure you can imagine what a bunch of blokes talk in the pub. But we have a few times acknowledged the good that it does us. And this is, we're all from very different backgrounds and fields. But we actually have noticed that between us, and just do that once. So whenever you're doing something that you know makes you feel better, just notice that, and then it'll actually be even better for you. Whether that's going to the pub with your mates and sharing stuff. We will frequently now have a little hug afterwards or say, mate, I feel better for that, thank you. One or other of us will always just fess up that, I really needed that this week, thanks boys. And that magnifies the effectiveness of it.
So actually maybe even just that label of mindfulness itself isn't very helpful. Really,
only because it doesn't align well with what we as blokes are supposed to be. We're not allowed to do that. And yet, weirdly, some of the toughest, most archetypally blokey blokes, I know lots of people in special forces, military, rugby, all the big tough blokes are usually the ones who are actually most at ease, saying, I love hanging out with my mates, it just makes me feel better. I mean, it has been, particularly in the case of blokes. That's a fact. Blokes hanging out with blokes, even if we are just talking rubbish, does help. And I'm sure it's the same for women. Just hanging out with your mates demonstrably does you good. But just do it knowingly, mindfully, and it'll be even more effective.
Thank you, Richard. I love that. You mentioned your guilt for Wendy and for Phil. What can you tell us about the importance of support for the people around you, both at home and at work, when you go through such experiences?
In terms of feeling guilt, just if you're recovering from something yourself, you will be told a lot how bad it is for everybody else. And there will be moments when you think, yeah, can we just remember who's brain damaged here? It's me. Because it does happen a lot. But actually, it is profound. Yeah, it has a profound effect on those around you, and a long-lasting effect. Quite possibly because you're focused on recovery from whatever. The people around you don't have the same direct physical attachment to that process of recovery as you. So you're going to get little dopamine hits regularly as you're noticing other steps along your path to recovery that they're not. So that's when you really need to look out for them.
That's interesting. There's a sort of an adjacent question here as well, in terms of the impact on the wider sort of support network. So my partner has been in long-term unwell for 4 years and in slow recovery. She relies on group income protection and the personal support is there for her, but there's nothing to support the family or me, who have to provide a lot of support. Looking back, what would have helped Mindy and the girls through your recovery if there was something that could have been done? If there was something that could have been done?
I don't think there was anything necessarily missing. I know my employer was very supportive. I think friends can help. I think your own attitude can help. But broader, coordinated support, it's something, again, perhaps, as an employer or somebody in HR, and I don't know where everybody sits on what they all do, but that is something, again, that you should have on your radar. Yeah, definitely. If somebody is long-term ill, injured, recovering, whatever, I think, yeah. If you have a duty of care towards the person that works with or for you, but thereby you also have a duty of care to those attached to them, don't you? Because they are part of their life.
And one final question from the audience before we sort of wrap up. What is the most positive thing that's come out of both crashes for you and for your wider circle?
It's changed my outlook on... Bearing in mind, I don't know how I would have been if I hadn't had those crashes, because I did. I'd say it's probably made me more patient. It's probably made me more aware. It's given me the confidence to pursue a more mindful approach to living, definitely. I think it's made me more open to stuff, because once you've got over the indignity of being hurt, of proving, I'm not invincible, that's something of a disappointment. Once you've handled that, it gets rid of a lot of stigma and stuff around it, and then you can get on with it. You can be a lot more open, perhaps. I mean, I can't say I'm any good, but it's probably helped. It's probably made me I'd say it's made me a better person. Well, you can decide you want to continue trying to be a better person, and therefore whatever happens to you, good or bad, is part of that
experience.
I'm trying to avoid saying journey.
Yeah.
I can't think of another word.
It's okay, let's just say journey. It's a
journey,
isn't it?
I said journey. Sorry.
It's okay. We use the word journey a lot.
I know. It gets used a lot. I used it
at
at a speech at the end of the Grand Tour once and got booed.
Did you?
Yeah. We've all been on this journey,
don't worry,
and then the whole room erupted. I was, what have I said? I'm sorry.
No, it's a safe space for using the word journey.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we wrap up this webinar today, just a couple of final thoughts. So could you share, if you had to share like one piece of advice to people who are in HR or an organisation where they're supporting people on the recovery journey, what would that be? And then also to someone who's on their recovery journey, who's suffering major physical and mental well-being, what are your challenges, what are your final
It'll be something, I mean, it's just distilling from what I've rambled on about so far. If you have any duty of care, responsibility towards somebody, support the whole person. And that means you are asking them, you have to give them space to tell you what's wrong or show you or share it, because otherwise you can't make the allowances, the accommodations that they may or may not need. You're stepping into a very personal space with them to address that. And that's a privilege. And you're asking a lot of them to do that because they're also under stress. They've been horribly unwell, they've been injured, they've suffered in whatever way. And at that moment, you're saying, hey, do you want to share a really personal aspect of your life with somebody that you work with? Because that's what you need them to do, and that's what you've got to try and persuade them to do. And if it's you are the person recovering. Look, whatever's happened, that business of the fork in the road, I appreciate it's not as easy of that. If you've suffered a life-changing injury, it's probably very, very difficult to, I'm going to make this a good thing. Really? But life is going to go on for you anyway, in whatever shape it now has. If it's been changed, it's going to go on. It's still your life. And it's up to you to decide, right, that is my one life. I'm going to make that a good thing in my one life. It's changed things, but change doesn't have to be bad, however significant the change. I can feel how that could be hard to hear. And I understand if that's exercised you and you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, look what's just happened to me. But it still hasn't happened to you until you've responded to it, and you have control over that.
Thank you, Richard, for those very wise words.
It would be called wise before.
We really appreciate. Thank you so much for being here today. Should we just give Richard a big clap? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And a huge thank you to everybody who's joined us online today. We hope to see you again for another event soon. Take care. Thank you.